This is a global skills podcast, conversations that shape the future of work and learning. We're exploring how we close the skills gap and build a future where everyone has the chance to thrive. From education to business, connecting people, ideas, and opportunities that drive change. It's about collaboration, curiosity, and creating real impact today. Because every skill learned brings us one step closer to a more inclusive world. The Global Skills Podcast, where learning and opportunity come together. Adam is a serial HR tech founder with over 20 years in talent acquisition and recruitment technology. He was CEO and co-founder of Candidate ID, which was acquired by iCIMS in 2022, following multiple global awards, including Recruitment Tech Startup of the Year and HR Tech Product of the Year. He's also completed one of the industry's deepest research efforts into recruiter enablement, with hundreds of interviews, focus groups, and practical frameworks used by TAs teams globally. Today, Adam Gordon is founder and CEO of PoetryHR, an AI workspace built specifically for experienced higher talent acquisition, helping recruiters save around 25% of their time daily. Known for his straight-talking style and sharp foresight, Adam has a rare ability to spot where TA is heading before it becomes obvious. This conversation hopefully will cut through the noise to explore what's really changing in talent acquisition with AI and what matters next, and how teams can move from transactional recruiting to true talent advisory. Adam, you're very welcome to the Global Skills Podcast.
An amazing introduction. I can't wait to hear myself speaking after that. Terrific.
I think you and I both started in recruitment about the same time, maybe you a little bit longer. But I would love to ask you, how did you get into this whole world of talent acquisition?
Well, this is really simple and also very embarrassing. So I'm gonna be frank. I was probably a bit of a moron till I was about 30 years old. And that's round about the time that I started growing up. I think I was a teenager till I was about 30. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I studied politics and history at the University of Strathclyde, which taught me how to write better. It didn't really teach me anything particularly that was useful for a future career, because I didn't want to be a historian, a librarian, and I definitely didn't want to be a politician or work in civil service. So what happened was I was applying for jobs. I was quite full of myself. I was telling these companies that I thought I was going to be great for them without any real substance behind what I was saying in my application forms or my interviews. But a good friend of mine, he got a job working in a recruitment company, which at the time it was called HW Group PLC. It's gone through a variety of changes over the years. It's sort of now became Hudson and then something else. But anyway, he was about 2 years older than me. He was driving a Mercedes, and I just thought, I have no idea what recruitment is. I don't understand what the job's all about, but I like his car. So I'm quite keen. And so that was my motivation. His motivation for helping me get an interview was that I think he probably got like a £1,000 bonus or whatever for bringing in an additional recruitment trainee into the company. So he set me up. He prepped me for the interview. I was able to parrot him in the interview. I didn't know what contingency meant and what retained assignments meant, but he had written it all down for me and I learned it all, got the interview, and then on the job, I learned what recruitment really was all about. So that's the embarrassing but frank story of how I ended up in recruiting.
How many years were you working in agency side?
I did it for 3 years, and 1999 till 2002. And the reason I got out of it was because, quite frankly, I found the job of talking to candidates quite boring. I was recruiting newly qualified accountants from the likes of KPMG and EY and moving them into industry as financial accountants and internal auditors and things like that. And it wasn't really something I particularly enjoyed. I loved the chase of getting the job on and trying to beat Michael Page. I loved the whole business development aspect of it. And I loved the marketing aspects of it. So I'm quite good with written words. And, I might have had 20 to 30 words every week that I could put into a lineage advert in the back page of the Glasgow Herald, and it would come out on a Friday morning. And I would always get into work early on a Friday, maybe 7:45, something like that. And hopefully my phone was ringing. There was messages on there because people had picked up the paper and were responding to my advert. They were the exciting bits for me with the sales and marketing aspects of it. Talking to candidates, because they'd worked in like big four accountancy firms where they were told, you've only got the job here because you're the best. We only hire elite people in here. And they honestly believed that. And they would come in to an interview with me and I'd ask them their aspirations and they would tell me things that were ridiculous. completely deluded about what they were going to be able to achieve. A whole army of people who looked and sounded the same all wanted to be the CEO of some big company within 3 years. And I'm thinking, I mean, there's loads of auditors, but there's only one job as the CEO. So, you can't all become that. Anyway, I moved into a recruitment marketing agency after 3 years as a business development manager, and my job was going and winning customers, but it was spending a lot of time on the marketing aspects of recruiting. And I did a lot of work with customers to help them understand what kind of microsites were and what applicant tracking systems were and other like early digital products that we were offering into companies like that, what employer branding was all about, selling employer branding consulting programs and insights programs and things like that. So I went from like filling financial accountant jobs for some ball bearings company to working with Morgan Stanley on the employer brand program that they needed for their new contact center operations in the UK, which was more strategic and more exciting and interesting for me.
So, what led to the idea of Candidate ID?
Well, so in 2009, I'll go back a step actually. In 2009, so I was marketing director for a contact center recruitment business. And it was a very interesting company and it was an entrepreneurial business. And I learned a lot from the CEO, who was an old friend of mine from playing rugby together. But I learned a lot from him around you don't have to be confined in your way of doing things the same as other people do them because it might not be the right way. So cliched thinking outside the box type of thing. And I found that really exciting. So my mum died in 2008. She left a house to me and my sister, quite a big house. And I couldn't have afforded to buy my sister's half and then pay a mortgage on it and whatever at that time. But I made a decision after about 6 months. Trying to sell a house in 2009 was not a great time to do it. One day I just made this kind of semi-spontaneous decision to quit my job in order to try and earn more money as an independent consultant in order to just keep my mom's house. So I made the decision to do that. And I started by helping companies and individuals to use LinkedIn for business development and for recruiting. And so I was kind of selling my time to help them create brilliant profiles for their companies and create content and do things like that. And then after a few months, it became clear that one of the things they needed was lists. They needed lists of sales prospects and they needed lists of potential candidates. So I hired somebody and we built the service, and then we effectively turned into a talent sourcing business. That was called Social Media Search. And so I took that into a joint venture with a London listed executive search firm in 2012. I stayed with that business for 4 years, which was a really, really fun place to be. It was a company called Norman Broadbent PLC. I was on the operating board, London listed company based in the West End or St. James's in London. And in that 4 year period, I became very excited about technology. I stumbled across, I think it was on Bloomberg or CNBC, a program called Tech Stars. And it was all about setting up these startup businesses. And it was reality TV effectively for startup founders. And in this incubator called Techstars, then I realized that there was like, I don't know, maybe 100 videos or whatever on their YouTube channel. So over about a 6 month period, I kind of watched them all, digested it all, and really sheep dipped myself into this is what tech is all about. Again, I'm going to be truthful. The multiple valuations that you can get on a technology company are more exciting than they are in a services business. So I was very excited to like establish how I could get involved in this. Round about that time, I met a guy in Glasgow called Scott McRae. Scott was an expert in marketing automation technology. We had a mutual customer and we met at their sales conference and we were both talking on stage. I was after him, I think, and I was nodding all the way through what he was saying and he was nodding all the way through what I was saying. And we met up a week or so later. We had a coffee and he was telling me all about marketing automation technology. And my instinct was, hang on, we need this kind of thing in recruiting. We really need it because companies don't really know, like recruiters don't really know who to prioritize picking up the phone to when they get the job on. And they can search for people according to in their databases according to who's got the best match for the job. But actually, if I'm looking to fill a job as a marketing executive and I've got 900 people who are all marketing executives on my database, how do I prioritize further who's likely to be most interested in talking to me? So we then got on to talking about intent and how do you measure intent in recruiting. And so just the whole principles of marketing automation, which is about generating demand with customers, we talked about, well, we could do the same with candidates. So if a company's got a big candidate database, you could nurture market these individuals. And this type of software will continuously monitor who's clicking, who's interacting, who's on your website, who's looking at your career site and your landing pages and opening the emails and clicking on your social media. And if we can do that, then we've got something that'll help recruitment teams to really get more productive in the way that they are handling their candidate relationships and getting to the, as Scott used to describe it, is it's all about, you've got a hatchery and it's like full of eggs. You want to know which of the eggs that are about to hatch just before they hatch so that you can go and get to those chicks. And that's what demand generation is all about. And that's what Candidate ID was all about. It was a very lengthy process to kind of take this sort of learning from Techstars and other kind of online stuff that I'd gone and spent time digesting to actually putting that into practice, because there's still so much that you don't know. You don't know about information security, and you don't know about all these other boring things that they don't talk about on Techstars. They talk about on Techstars how to raise investment, how to get your first customer, how to do product market fit, how to map the size of your addressable market, and those types of things. What they don't talk to you about is all the other, like, less interesting things that you have to find out about.
What was the biggest thing that you remember that surprised you the most of having your own business?
You know, the concept of working for yourself, or the concept of being, like, everybody works for themselves is considered an entrepreneur if you go onto YouTube, okay? But I mean, obviously working for yourself as an independent consultant, as you and I know, that does not make you an entrepreneur. But it is a level of risk that you've taken to leave, employment to go and, for whatever reason it is, to earn more money or to have more freedom in who you work for or when you work or where you work or whatever. So it is a step towards proper entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship is about a higher level of risk taking than being an independent consultant. So I went from being employed to being effectively an independent consultant to then hiring my first person. That company had 25 people within about 2 years or something like that. And so it was a fairly quick growth within that business. I had no concept of what I was doing. So the surprises were kind of little and often rather than one big one. But I think a lot of people today would almost certainly find that their biggest surprise would be the job they were doing previously is not a level of stress that's comparable with the level of stress you have when there is no safety net.
It's a really good point. Yes.
If you watch videos on YouTube and you watch all these perceived to be highly successful people talking about the learnings that they've had and what it's like to start a business and all that sort of thing, and then when you realize they are not entrepreneurs, they are YouTubers explaining how to do it from their perspective in being a YouTuber, that's not the same thing as starting a business, taking that type of risk and hiring employees and creating products, physical products or digital products or whatever it might be. So yeah, I definitely think that level of sort of stress is something which is different.
It led to a successful exit. So I guess my question would be, and by a global player in the applicant tracking system world, was it worth it?
I mean, yes, it's the answer to that. And I think what I gave away there is that it was a successful exit. We got a very strong multiple. I personally changed my financial profile from doing that. And it was very, very worth it from the perspective of, it was quite life-changing for our family. I mean, I'm not with iCIMS, of course. I was there for 10 months. I helped supervise the handover. And I can tell you that even when a company pays a premium to buy your business, they're doing it on the basis that they know they don't have to sell your product to a huge percentage of their customer base in order for that to make economic sense for them. So this is public knowledge. iCIMS has got thousands and thousands of customers. So we had 25 customers or something like that at the time. And like fairly high value and a good customer list and whatever. But if you've got thousands of customers, you don't have to sell it to all of those customers for it to be a big economic success. So I think it was probably a good success on both sides. And I'd love to do it again.
Quick question. Do you actually know what skills exist across your organizations today? Or are decisions still being made on job titles, CVs, and assumptions around who can be reskilled and upskilled? You see, as AI reshapes work and organizations really face that pressure to cut costs, the real challenge isn't just skills gaps. It's understanding which skills are transferable and which can be redeployed into the future with a bit of upskilling. So, for the listeners of Global Skills Podcast, Abodu, our sponsor, has created this free Skills AI readiness assessment. It gives leaders clarity in just 3 minutes. It shows skills gaps, automation exposure, and where future-ready capabilities already exist within your business. No data upload, no preparation, just clarity for the future of your organization. Visit abodu.com/global skills podcast. Now, back to the episode.
Well, it sounds like you're about to. And I think before we jump onto poetry, you haven't left the talent industry. It's 2 decades. And you have a very good indication of where we've come from, where we are right now, and where we're going. I know we've talked on and off over the last couple of months around the fact that organizations now are realizing that skills are an asset. Probably one of the greatest assets they have are their people and their people's ability to leverage AI and all the other tasks that need to be done. But still, we're looking at very archaic systems, heavy systems around learning, people, applicant tracking. And there's huge integrations happening in order to try and pull it all together in one, maybe skills taxonomy or one system that can be managed effectively in real time. I'd love to know what you feel of the industry, of where we are today, and what's likely to be happening in the coming months, year ahead.
So there's consolidation in the market. A lot of the major players who are offering basic kind of solutions, shall we say, basic versions of an applicant tracking system compared to the best of breed players like an iCIMS, for example, they have recognized that there's a lot more that they need to offer in order to keep up with the market because it's moving so fast. Technology's almost certainly never moved as fast as it is today. I see companies coming into the market with a brilliant idea, executed really well, and they are out of product market fit 6 months later because what they're offering has been overtaken by other things that have come in doing it with a more modern approach based on more modern capability through an upgraded version of a large language model or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's been some consolidation. There's going to be further consolidation. Problem that then creates is you've got different products which are built in different ways, in different programming languages, and with maybe a different approach towards user interface and that type of thing. It can create really messy outcomes. And from the user's perspective, the HR team, the talent acquisition team, there's definitely fatigue around the number of different logins they need to get their tasks completed. And they certainly want less technologies to be able to complete their tasks. So if they could log into one system and it does everything they need for talent acquisition, then that would be terrific. And the trade-off you really probably have at this point is, well, we've got things that can do a lot, but they do them fairly basic way. And so there's still a need for companies that want to achieve excellence in talent acquisition. They do need best of breed providers for, different workflows or different actions. And then there is another important element, I think, to this. I sense that a lot of businesses have changed their attitude towards humans and towards, as in employees. And what I mean by that is the days of CEOs saying our people are our biggest asset, whether they ever meant it or not. I don't feel like as many CEOs can say that and really mean it as they could in the past. I think that we're in a position of, I've described this as like employment brutality. Large companies do not want more people. They definitely do not want more headcount. They probably want less headcount, whether they have actively said it or they've not. And AI has given them the ability to achieve that. And so their messaging around our people are our biggest asset, just doesn't ring true. And that's why we're kind of hearing that a little bit less. Every major organization has been doing transformation programs over the last 18 months, looking at which teams have we got, what's the AI capability in finance or in marketing or in HR or whatever it is, and what are the jobs and the skills that we need, which are really high value human skills that need judgment and empathy and those types of things that AI or robotics or any technology cannot kind of take over. I think what they're finding is there are big swathes of jobs which can be done just as well, if not better, by technology than they can be done by humans. 5 years ago, you couldn't have said that about a huge number of jobs, but you can say that about a lot of jobs now. I mean, even high, well-paying jobs like legal, for example. I mean, like there's going to be a lot less legal professionals in 5 years than there is today. So, I've been working since 1999, and I can't remember a time that's been as dynamic and on one side of the coin frightening, and on the other side of the coin exciting as we have today.
It's a really good point. And I mean, I think while you were talking there, I was thinking, well, what is the role of talent acquisition if companies are not going to hire? Is it to backfill, or do you see the role of talent acquisition now evolving into more of an advisory capacity within the business and internal recruitment and mobility and leveraging and upskilling the staff that we do have?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about the talent acquisition team and we think about the tasks that they work on, there's quite a lot of tasks that they don't need to be working on today that they did 5 years ago. Obvious ones would include scheduling. So, a lot of TA teams had large groups of people called TA coordinators whose job it was to liaise with the hiring manager, liaise with the candidates, make sure that the time was in the diary and that everybody knew the information they needed. That's clearly not a job that we need today. There's been technology out there for a long time that's been able to handle that, and it's only got better. Another example would be interviewing. So there are certain jobs where a human interviewer is the only option. You're not going to hire a chief marketing officer or a chief financial officer with AI doing like an avatar on a screen, like asking them questions and then interpreting what they've said and then like moving them forward to the next stage or not, according to did they play the robot well. Whereas there's other jobs where a fully automated assessment process is not only the most efficient thing to do for the employer, but actually probably quite desired by the candidate as well. I think we make a mistake in talent acquisition in thinking humans want to talk to humans. A lot of the time, they just don't. They don't want to talk to recruiters. They might want to talk to the hiring manager, the person who will be their boss, but they don't actually want to talk to recruiters. They want to just get through a process. And then if they get through that process, maybe do a sort of chemistry meeting with who would be their boss. And that's what they want to do. So, yeah, what is the role of talent acquisition? I mean, the role of talent acquisition, I think, is moving very much towards TA operations. And what I mean by that is people who look after policies, process, technology, and the company's general approach to getting recruitment done, employer branding or talent attraction professionals whose job it is to ensure that the business is really conveying a positive and accurate reflection of what it's like to work there. And there's not an awful lot of other jobs needed, really, in the executive area. Certainly in the areas like white collar, experienced hire, in-demand talent. So I mean things like healthcare jobs and certain types of technology jobs and things like that. And then, of course, in the executive area, I believe there's an important role for human recruiters doing sourcing and doing interviewing in that as well. So it's horses for courses, but a lot of changes that are able to happen today, which weren't able to happen a few years ago.
And I've always believed that if you can have tech and AI do all the donkey work, the admin, if we can just have the humans connecting with humans and helping convert the right ones into the organization, that's gold. But I spoke to a senior professional the other day who took redundancy. He opted for it and he's getting very frustrated because he's dealing with recruiters that are quite junior, that are doing the first stage screening and they're screening him out. And I mean, as a former executive recruiter, he's gold and it might require you to position him differently within the organization. But because he's not perfectly ticking a box, they're screening him out like nearly an AI would. So if companies are not going to take on the junior recruiters to the extent that they have been, therefore we won't have that talent pool in 5-10 years' time to deal with the senior professionals being screened. Will it be AI that will do all the screening?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same challenge that we have I mentioned legal, for example, earlier. I've got a lot of friends who are lawyers. And so their question is, who are the partners in the law firms of the future if we don't actually need trainees today? So I think that there's going to be less entry level people coming into recruiting, but those people who do are going to be coming into recruiting specifically at the complex technical types of roles or in the exec area. I think the days of somebody going into a recruitment job where their task is to do clerical admin jobs, and then maybe they'll move into something like finance or marketing jobs, and then they'll maybe move up towards doing executive jobs or something like that. I don't think that's a likely career path from here. So does that mean that recruiting becomes more of a specialist and, like, I hesitate to say it, but I'm going to say it, kind of elite type of thing compared to what it has been? Might be, but I think there's a lot of white collar professions that, are achieving the same. Accountancy is another example. There's a lot of junior level accountancy or entry level accountancy type jobs that you don't really need those jobs. And yeah, it certainly applies to recruiting.
And so in a way, I know I'm covering all professionals now. Is it just going to become an elite professional workforce? You're either world class, you're upskilling, you're reskilling on the latest skills, and you're in the club, or you're not.
Well, I think back to, I'm not sure if this was the same in Ireland, but certainly in the UK, when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister, his kind of mantra was education, education, education. And the goal was for large numbers of people to go to university. And, 50+% of people were going to university, and a large number of them were going to university and coming out thinking that that was a ticket into a highly paid career, when in actual fact, certainly where I live in the west of Scotland, where there's loads and loads of call centres, they were rammed with graduates. And so is it going to mean that white collar jobs are progressively more elite? I think the answer to that is going to be yes. I think that the jobs where you need strategic ability, that need humans that have got high degrees of influencing skills and being able to get their work done by being able to, like, tell a story and bring people on that journey with them and really garner support for whatever they're trying to achieve, whether it's in procurement or it's in technology or it's in what, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to have to be people who can really, achieve influence, and not everybody can do that. But on the other side, there's a lot of well-paid individual contributor jobs that are outside of the office environment, which need a lot more people. And I'm talking about plumbing and carpentry and things like that. You can earn as much or more, you can earn more doing a lot of these jobs than you can in a lot of office jobs. And there's going to have to be a cultural shift in education for jobs like that to become more glamorized and therefore more appealing.
It was the same. We've had guests on in tourism and hospitality, and they were saying that they will employ people from 18 to 75 years old.
Yeah.
All about, can you connect with humans and give good customer service, think on your feet, and then you have a job. So yeah, look, jobs just might look a little bit different. Okay, very quickly, because I know we're coming to the end, and I have a final question I want to ask you before this one. You obviously have launched a new company. You've jumped back into the world of startup. Do you want to share a little bit about the work that you're doing now to relieve heads of talent acquisition of the role that they have in terms of attracting the best talent?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about Candidate ID and how that came about. We effectively created a marketing automation technology for recruiting, and there's no end of inspiration that we can take from sales and marketing. Marketing automation was fairly mainstream in sales and marketing, and nobody had applied that type of technology into talent acquisition until we did. I spent a bit of time with some people in sales enablement, really understanding what that's all about. When I realized the level of support that salespeople in large organizations, especially in tech, get around press a couple of buttons and here's your PowerPoint deck, here's your cold call script, here's your structure for your meeting, here's the intelligence you need to do that meeting, here's the pricing, and here's your calculators and your tools and your props and your things. Salespeople are really spoon-fed with a lot of things to enable them to be successful. And when I was learning about this, I was thinking, recruiters need a lot of things to try and complete their tasks. They need talent intelligence, and they need sourcing assets like Boolean strings and outreach messaging. They need marketing content like job adverts and social media posts. They need operational recruiting materials like interview questions and job descriptions. And they need competitor intelligence. And, they need to know a lot. They need to understand what the job's all about. They need to understand the diversity profile of people, who could do that job. They need to know the hotspots where there's companies that employ people that can do that job. So they need a huge amount of knowledge, assets, intel, marketing content, and things in the same way that sales people do. So like Candidate ID was Marketo for talent acquisition, The original concept for poetry was that it was going to be HighSpot for talent acquisition. HighSpot is a workspace for salespeople to be able to access all of the things that they need. Poetry is a workspace for all the things that recruiters need, all of those different assets. I did 200 hours of focus groups. I did 200 interviews with people for a YouTube channel I set up called Recruiter Enablement before I started a company aimed at this. And I did that because I wanted to learn for myself. Is my instinct correct that recruitment teams need this type of technology? But I didn't know what I didn't know. And maybe they had already solved it. And that's why I did so much research. But it turned out that a lot of teams did nothing. And therefore, recruiters are fending for themselves to try and create interview questions and job ads and things like that. And therefore, there's inconsistent candidate experiences. There's inconsistent employer brand messaging going out into the market. And of course, in the age of ChatGPT, that's only exacerbated because people can accelerate the amount of stuff that they create, which is all inconsistent. So Adam and Vanessa could be in the same team, sitting next to each other, doing a similar job, but we're producing completely different assets to support our work. And we're not collaborating. Exactly. So we wanted to create a workspace where a talent acquisition team can go and make use of each other's great work. They can put in templates so that everything is consistent. Employer brand can have input, or marketing teams can have input, so that the output when they're developing new content is it's all consistent, it's on brand, it's in context, it's right first time. So the original inspiration was HighSpot. And then I started learning about Harvey, which is a legal AI technology, which effectively allows lawyers to produce all the contracts and the things that they need to complete their tasks. And I'm looking at that going, okay, so that's application layer. It's AI for legal. Yeah. I mean, when I became aware of that, it really reinforced that we're doing the right thing, because they've raised $10 billion at a valuation of over 100 billion. And they started their company at round about the same time that we started poetry. And I'm thinking, well, look, talent acquisition might be a much smaller addressable market than legal, but the fact that that exists, really validates to me the reason why we've built poetry. It's to make AI accessible. It's to give talent acquisition teams the benefit of being able to use AI for their talent intelligence and their marketing assets and their operational materials without the risk of being off brand and producing things that are inconsistent. So that's what it's all about.
I think it's brilliant. It's a beautiful name, and we'll definitely include the link below, because I think I've always felt this in recruitment. You've one chance to make a first impression. And especially now, if we are going to be looking for the best of the best, you want to make sure you convert them. A final question we ask all the guests, 2 questions. You can answer both or one. It's up to you. Have you a skill that you used when you were younger that you don't use anymore, but that you would like to? And the second question, and I'm going to broaden it a bit, it's for those that are out of luck right now, maybe they're starting off and it's really hard to find a role, or for those that are mid-career and they're made redundant. I think the marketplaces, and you're very familiar with the job marketplaces, I won't name names. They're very noisy. The skills matching's not very accurate. There's a lot of bias. What can they do to help themselves would be the question.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll answer those in reverse order. What can people who are looking for job opportunities do to stand out? I think that they have to work between the seams. I think that they have to use every resource they have. Those people that have been kind are going to benefit from that now, because the people that they've done something for in the past are now going to very willingly do things for them to help them. Those people who have been selfish in the way that they've lived their lives and worked their careers have got higher mountains to climb, quite frankly. When I say work between the seams, I mean they need to work their networks. They need to go to the events. They need to contribute to the LinkedIn discussions. They need to find the Facebook groups that are talking about the subjects they're interested in. They need to get themselves known to CEOs and hiring managers. They need to pitch themselves for what they can actually do. So as an example, they know a hiring manager who leads an engineering team in a company that's close to them, and they know they can do engineering recruitment and they can, produce some real benefits to that organization. Go and pitch yourself to that hiring manager. Tell that person what you can achieve for them in terms of reducing their employee turnover, or reducing their time to get jobs filled, or possibly reducing their cost to get jobs filled, or increasing their ability to ship product, or whatever it might be. Talk to them in their language, tell them how you can help them to build talent pipelines, or whatever it might be. Go and pitch yourself to hiring managers, and go and try and create jobs where they don't necessarily exist. Just because a job's not on a career site doesn't mean that somebody isn't thinking about that. And if you go to the individual with a business plan, which is how you pitch yourself, go look for the companies. If you're in employer branding, go and look for the companies that don't appear to have an employer branding person and pitch the head of TA. You bring me into your team. This is what I'll be able to do for you. And bring me in for 3 months. And if I haven't achieved X and Y by the end of that 3 months, maybe I'm not going to be able to do what I think I can for you. But if I have, then you'll want me to stay for longer so that I can do this and this and this. So I think work between the seams. The other thing is to pitch yourself for projects and make absolutely sure, some people are going to take to this easier than others, make absolutely sure that you understand AI. I just can't begin to express how important this is in the context of anybody under the age of about 50 who's got like 10 or more years of a career ahead of them. This is going to be really vital for you in your career, that you understand what's possible and what's not possible and what it's all about. And you're going to cause yourself so much more problems if you're not keeping up. At the age of, I'm a bit of a technophobe, right? That's not a thing anymore. You can't be that person that says that. It's just not possible. If you're under the age of 40 and you think yourself as a tech dinosaur or something like that, that's not you have to invest in your career, and you have to, that limiting mindset that you've got on that, you need to get rid of it, because there's no job that's not going to be, or there's very few jobs that are not going to be like heavily influenced by technology. So that was the answer to the second question.
And the first question, the skill that you don't use anymore that you'd like to?
I don't really know if I've got an answer to that, but I tell you one thing that I am planning for. And like when I grew up, I dreamed of being a rock star or a centre forward for Rangers in Scotland. I didn't really dream about working in technology or recruitment. And much as I enjoy it today, I'm not sure I've got any particular skills that I want to use more or less, but I am planning for a second career, and that's going to be in my 50s. I am really enthusiastic about working in sport. I think that I can take a lot into sport from my experience in sales and marketing and recruiting and technology. And I don't think the money you earn in sport is particularly high unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo or something like that. But like on the business side of sport, it's not a very high earning, industry for people particularly. But
Unless you're an agent, Adam.
I'm sure being an agent, being Ronaldo's agent, yeah, exactly. That'd be great. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that, but I do want to spend the last 10 years, let's say, of my career, I want to spend that working in sport. And if I have to go in as some junior job, I'll do it. I don't really care, but that's what I'm looking forward to do. If I look back to like when I was a kid, what did I want to do? My days of being able to play for the Scotland rugby team probably aren't ahead of me, I would think. So I'll get involved in another way.
I love that you've shared that. Like, I know we've touched on talent acquisition, starting your own company and everything, but the standout for me is, and I think people are looking for this advice, it's actually to be the recruiter of your own life.
Yeah.
And not to be harsh on yourself. Just think about what is it that you love. And you're on an immediate mission now. You have another startup, but you're already thinking about returning to an industry or going to an industry. There's no limit for anyone to do the same thing. It's like that advice that company said to you, you don't have to do it the same way again and again and again.
Yes.
You can approach everything differently. Just really grateful for you coming on today. Thank you for shining a new light on being the recruiter of your own life.
I think that's a great way of doing it. You have to be intentional. You want to make decisions in an intentional way when it comes to your career. And Vanessa, thank you very much for inviting me on and for giving me really creative and great questions to answer. So the pleasure's been mine.
Thank you.
Whether you're leading a business, shaping education, planning your next career move, or just starting out, you're part of a global conversation about how we learn, work, and grow. If you've enjoyed this episode, tap subscribe so you never miss the latest insights. And if you've a moment, leaving a quick rating really helps people find the show. For early access to new episodes, event invitations, and the chance to connect with others driving real change, join the community at globalskillspodcast.com. The future of skills belongs to all of us. Proudly sponsored by Abodu, empowering organisations and educators with world-class skills technology to build a better future for everyone.